Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the All in Crypto podcast. I am your host, Rupert, and today I am excited to be joined by Jennifer, the marketing and community lead over at Nunet, a decentralized computing protocol. Welcome on board, Jennifer. How are you?
Thank you. Very good. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, no, really excited to have you on. You know, this kind of, there's this sort of term that's been really becoming quite a big part of the crypto space right now in the form of DPIM, decentralized physical infrastructure. And I think Nunet would very much fall under that. It's a personal interest of mine. Certainly when you look at how the world currently goes round, it's very compute heavy. And of course, the idea of sort of decentralizing that, I think, is one of extreme interest. So very, very excited to be talking to yourself, talking about Nunet. And I think the best place for us to start would be for my audience to sort of understand what Nunet actually is. So if we could start with a big overview of Nunet, the floor is yours.
So thank you for having me on. And you're dead right. Nunet definitely falls into the deep-in category. So Nunet is a open source, decentralized computing and orchestration platform. And basically, we're aiming to create a globally accessible, democratized network for computing. In simple terms, think of it like Airbnb for computing. It allows anyone with spare computing power, capacity, whether it's a data center or your personal computer or an IoT device, to share latent resources with others. So this setup not only provides people with and organizations with affordable and easier access to distributed computing power, but also rewards contributors for sharing their idle resources. Um, and another topic that I kind of touched on there is orchestration. So at the heart of Nunet is its orchestration layer. And basically that coordinates and optimizes how tasks are assigned and executed across a global network of devices. So you can think of it as a system that finds available resources, picks the best device for each task, and seamlessly allocates the jobs, all without needing a central authority. So if we looked at some other decentralized computing projects, they may have a centralized orchestration layer. At Nunet, we're actually building a fully decentralized computing stack. So with orchestration, just to kind of break it down even more, the way I like to look at it is, imagine an orchestra where each musician plays a different instrument, and each musician sits in a different room, but they're all brought together by a conductor. And the conductor ensures that they stay in sync and create beautiful music. So in Nunet, the orchestration works like the conductor. It identifies the best musician or device in our case for each note or task in our case. So it keeps everything running smoothly, adjusts dynamically if like a device logs off or a new one joins. And that's kind of what we're building. So Nunet was built to overcome the limitations of traditional centralized cloud infrastructure, especially for dynamic applications like edge computing, AI, and IoT. So in conventional cloud models, there's a single provider, controls all the resources, which can limit flexibility and also raise costs because they're the ones that control the devices. Nunet, in contrast, offers a more flexible, scalable, and decentralized alternative where resources are distributed and managed across the global network. And where we come into Web3 and blockchain is we actually use Web3 and blockchain for technologies for secure and transparent micropayments, which basically ensures that anyone can use the network because crypto, anyone can use it, and also ensures that contributors are fairly compensated, and that users can confidently tap into a trusted shared network of computing. So that would be my summary of it all.
Yeah, I absolutely love the orchestra kind of analogy there. I think that really simplifies it and makes a lot of sense. And if you look at the world that we're currently in, it's a very compute-heavy world. This is only going to accelerate with the likes of some of the kind of innovations that you mentioned there. AI, IoT, the Internet of Things, which is fastly approaching. some of the things like edge computing, some of the things that we already have. As we move towards a more and more digital world, I think compute plays an oil-like role in regards to the world that we're moving towards. And this is why I was so excited to have you on, because if you look at how cloud computing is very much orchestrated at the moment, it's very much centralized. It's owned by essentially the largest companies in the world, and they very much have a monopoly on it up until now, in the same way the likes of the Federal Reserve or the central banks had a monopoly on money up until Bitcoin. You can really see how we've gone from Bitcoin to essentially Nunet. We've took this idea of a distributed ledger and really came up with a similar use case, in the sense that Bitcoin is just a computing network when you think about it. But now we're using that compute for something far more. And I know there's lots of differences in regards to getting to Nunet. One thing I want to sort of drill down on, you mentioned it briefly there, is big tech companies. So they currently dominate the computing space. How does Nunet aim to shift that balance, and what advantages does it bring to the table in regards to using the likes of your big companies?
Yeah, of course, and you're right. Computing for when you're working in a space of computing, everything we do relies on compute right now. So you can really see compute as like a new form of currency, like you mentioned, like oil. It's really a new form of currency. And are we going to give all that power to centralized companies and centralized tech companies that dominate this space? And basically, we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen. And we break this model by enabling anyone with unused computing power, from, like I said, individual laptops to full data centers, to share resources through an open and decentralized network. So instead of paying really high premiums for traditional cloud services, users and developers can access, first of all, access these computing resources. That's one thing. Hopefully, be more affordable and distributed computing resources through our peer-to-peer platform. So when we look at this setup, this decentralized setup, it offers some key advantages in comparison to big tech. And one for me that's very important is increased accessibility. So by opening up computing access to everyone, especially to smaller organizations, developers, students, whoever it may be, Nunet makes computing available, high powered computing available and affordable, and really levels the playing field for those who may not otherwise afford it. And that's really big thing for me, is that, if you're a researcher in India, that you have the same, rights and access to access computing if you're, in America or wherever you may be. Another benefit we can see is resilience and flexibility. So traditional cloud services work best with stable, predictable workloads, where in contrast, Nunet's decentralized model is actually built to adapt to more dynamic environments like edge, IoT, and this offers a more flexible and resilient network that doesn't depend on any single provider. And another thing is that we're open source, so transparency is a big thing here. We have like a developer documentation portal that has a project management tracker. You can track everything. We're fully open source. We encourage people to come in and build on top of what we're building, build use cases, build features and functionalities onto the platform. That's another big thing. And then cost efficiency. We can reduce the reliance on costly data centers, which will allow contributors to earn income from otherwise idle resources. So that's it's another form of, earning, and like I said, one of the big selling points of our platform is that we don't work with we do work with big data centers, but we also work with personal individual devices, and we have really low requirements to join the network. So that's another thing. So I think what these benefits all together, Nunet offers a real alternative to big tech, fosters more open, diverse, and competitive computing ecosystem. It also fosters more innovation, having access to this computing. So I really think that this will challenge big tech's dominance and create a new paradigm where anyone can contribute to and anyone can benefit from a shared pool of computing resources.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I have to say, just listening to, I'm getting pretty excited about the kind of concept of decentralized computing, because it really seems like the next step. If we've kind of introduced this technology of decentralization, a distributed ledger to the world, computing seems really ripe to sort of be embedded by it. One question I'm sure a lot of people have is in regards to actually incentivizing people to contribute their compute to Nunet, but also use Nunet. What's your kind
Mhm.
of strategy for that? How is Nunet looking at that? How are you guys trying to incentivize the sort of maintaining or running of this compute by individuals, and also maybe then segue into users? Is there a strategy for trying to attract actual users of the compute to the Nunet network?
So bringing users and contributors to Nunet is very important. We're building, first of all, we want to build and we are building a very open, rewarding, and impactful platform. Um, and we're making it, I say easy, it will become easier. It's maybe not easy to some and appealing to join. One of the first things is the accessible participation and flexibility you have. So, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the biggest strengths is that um, anyone can join, like personal laptop, server, IoT device. You can participate in Nunet without having a large upfront investment. So, you don't need to buy a physical node, you don't need to buy a CPU or GPU rig. It's physical devices. Um, and this flexible setup lets contributors share as much or as little computing power as they choose. So we have a truly decentralized network that's on everyone's terms. So maybe I have a MacBook here. Maybe today I want to contribute X amount of CPU or GPU, and tomorrow I'm like, okay, I want some of that back. I want to do a bit my own work. I can take that out of the network. That's one thing. Um, we're also a platform like for innovation and experimentation, so we're open source. Decentralized infrastructure provides a unique space for developers and businesses to experiment and build freely without the limitations or locking contracts with traditional cloud providers. Another one is that we're obviously community driven development. So, as an open source platform, Nunet is shaped by its community. And users, in the long run, we're hoping to have like governance where users can directly influence how the platform evolves, making it an ideal choice for those who want to be part of a project that grows and adapts to community needs rather than following like a central authority's agenda. And the other thing with the community driven development is we will be generating and creating a contributors program. We will be like building and generating, kind of funds for developers to build features and functionalities or build their own use cases on top of Nunet. So that's how we're looking at that. In terms of users and those that actually want to use it, we're part of the Singularity Net ecosystem as well as ASI, so we kind of have some leverage there with them. But the other thing as well is that we can offer this to smaller startups, smaller individuals that find it very hard or maybe don't have the financial resources behind them to actually on board and get computing. We've talked with some compute providers where they've said, yeah, I've been on a waiting list for X amount of months just to get some new GPUs. So there's a serious shortage of actually having GPUs and getting GPUs, but yet we have so much latent GPUs that are out there. And that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to gather those latent GPUs, put them into like one singular network where anyone can come and use and build and develop on them.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you've got a really solid plan towards sort of attracting adoption, not just from a sort of GPU, CPU providing point of view, but also from an actual user point of view, which is really interesting. I like the point that you touched on there in regards to there's a shortage of this resource, of the actual hardware that um, facilitates compute. And we can see that all over the place. If you look at NVIDIA, for example, the largest company in the world, They essentially are providers of GPUs and that compute resource, and there is absolutely a shortage, and that shortage is almost going to increase unless they can really do something on the supply side of things as the demand for these GPUs gets more and more. There is the argument that, of course, technology typically evolves. But what Nunet really, for me, that's exciting is doing is it's kind of unlocking what in some cases an untapped or an unused resource and sort of providing it to the broader landscape of a compute hungry world, which I think is absolutely fascinating. And with all of this, one thing that I really like to do when I'm understanding a project is sort of understanding the origins of it. You mentioned ASI and artificial superintelligence. We'll come on to that a little bit later on. But what was the kind of initial inception and idea of Nunet? Where did that come from? I don't know if you know the origin stories of kind of Nunet, but I'd be excited to explore that.
Yeah, so it's always better to hear it from we say in Ireland the horse's mouth, but I will give it a stab. So basically, the
Yeah.
idea behind Nunet grew out of research on intelligence and decentralized computing, originally actually conducted within the Singularity Net ecosystem. And our founder, Kabir, co-founder, worked at Singularity Net with Ben Gertzel and Weaver, another our other founder as well. And basically, they were exploring ways to enable open-ended intelligence and self-organizing systems, where open-ended intelligence, basically, the way I envision it, is that there's kind of there's no closure to it. It just kind of develops and scales itself. So open-ended intelligence and self-organizing systems where computing resources could connect, interact, and collaborate across a network instead of being confined to a centralized system. So this early research took place within Nunet, within SingularityNet. But then it became clear that building a dedicated decentralized computing network actually required its own platform and its own focus and its own team. So then this realization led to the creation of Nunet as a spin-off of SingularityNet. We were the second spin-off, and it was designed specifically for decentralized computing, and aligned with Singularity's Net's larger ecosystem vision. And Nunet was built on years of research, to establish the new model of computing, and even just like reading some of the research that they've done, like it's amazing how their minds think and everything. But basically, established a new model of computing where diverse devices and data can securely connect and share resources on demand. So by going kind of all in on this open-ended model, and we have actually a blog series on our Medium account that goes through open-ended computing and everything like that, Nunet aims at establishing a flexible, democratized network that supports real-world needs and frees participants from centralized control, essentially. And this direction is part of the broader movement towards a decentralized, community-driven technology. And Nunet empowers individuals and organizations to share power, join a dynamic, interconnected computing network, without depending on large tech providers. And we're actually going to be exploring this vision further at the SingularityNet ecosystem event in Bangkok, which is on November 10th. So if anyone is coming to DevCon, head over to our X or SingularityNet's X account and make sure you come. And there we'll be delving deeper into how Nunet and decentralization overall can reshape the future of computing, AI, and tech.
With Nunet, it was initially sort of introduced to me as sort of Singularity's computing arm, decentralized computing arm. Again, computing and AI go together like humans and oxygen. It's the kind of lifeblood that essentially enables AI. And the question that I really want to ask you is, how do you see Nunet? Do you see it as having the biggest use case with AI, or do you see, you'd mentioned IoT, do you see there's more of a sort of broader use case, which of course there is because computing is a very general resource, how do you see all that? Where do you see Nunet kind of going, and what are you guys kind of working on at the moment? You mentioned smart cities and things like this. Where do you kind of see Nunet going with all this?
So, first of all, obviously AI was a big one for us because we were working with Singularity Net, but we're not just, contained in this like AI bubble. There's other decentralized computing projects and in the space that maybe just focus on like GPUs for AI or GPUs for gaming or GPUs for rendering, whatever it is. Numinet's a much broader project than that. Essentially, we can do, anything that really needs compute. Obviously, on top of the platform, there'll have to be certain features and functionalities that are built in to allow that. But that's something that we're going to work towards in the future. So, like mention like smart cities and IoT devices, like we're working with one project now, another deep in project called Deepose Mesh, and basically they do spatial computing. They do really cool stuff. I've checked out some of the videos. I have their app, and it's really cool. But essentially, they have um, issues with say big cloud providers, and it's not just them. It could be the other ones as well with latency. So essentially, they could be running their software or their device, whatever it is, on computing power that based here, maybe in Thailand. Okay. And they're based in, we'll just say Ireland. They're not really, but we'll just go with that. So there's a big latency issue there from sending, from all the way to Ireland to Ireland. So what Nunet can do is actually we can look at providing local access to resources. And with decentralized networks like Nunet, computing resources can be located closer to where the data is generated. And this is really useful for edge computing applications like IoT and smart cities, as just mentioned there, as well as the pose mesh, because by processing data locally, Nunet can reduce latency, improve speed, and deliver better performance than centralized data centers that might be far away from users. So essentially, like we're building a platform that is computing for all, and we've looked like that's a very high level, like a quite low level, and one use case that I quite like is students. So students in college that are doing their masters, PhD, bachelors, whatever it is, may not have access to computing resources. So what they can do is they can come in and use Nunet, and actually rather than them building their own computing at home as a student, your funds are pretty limited. You can come into this network and you can actually tap into computing resources. So the use cases scale from extremely large to small, and that's why we're open source. That's why we want to encourage people to come in and build on Nunet. You can come in and build these use cases, build these functionalities and these features onto Nunet. Make it a platform as like similar to what the internet does for knowledge, distributes knowledge. We want Nunet to be the like the internet of computing, essentially, that we can connect devices and distribute the power.
Yeah, I think that's the really interesting things with distributed ledgers is they're kind of taking what the internet did for technology and doing the same thing for not just computing, but many different areas. Value, of course, is the kind of main one that the crypto space focuses on. But compute, actually, that's a great way to put it as well. Nunet is very much doing the same thing for compute. It's making the internet of compute, which is sort of exciting. So you've got all these sort of massive use cases in regards to AI, all the way down to a student who's looking to sort of use compute for whatever task it is they're looking to fulfill. It's kind of, it really is democratizing and decentralizing compute, which is just I think a fascinating idea. In regards to Nunet's origins, one of the things that's interesting is your initial kind of spawning out of SingularityNet and that ecosystem. Because SingularityNet recently has merged with Fetch AI and, of course, Ocean Protocol to form the Artificial Super Intelligence Alliance. Now, this is interesting because what I really want to explore is perhaps Nunet's role within that broader project. I don't know if you could maybe segue very quickly in regards to the artificial superintelligence, what it's trying to do, and then how Nunet finds itself within that ecosystem.
Yeah, sure. So with ASI, they're trying to really decentralize AI, AGI in general. And for that, you need a lot of computing. You also need the ability to connect and to orchestrate devices. So in terms of ASI, Nunet's main role is to make decentralized computing more accessible, efficient, and by orchestrating and tapping into unused CPU and GPU resources and AI agents, even across a vast network of devices. So, recently they also partnered with Kudos, which is a decentralized cloud infrastructure. So they deal with kind of clouds and stuff. With Nunet, we actually focus on helping individual users and small organizations to share and monetize their computing power, aligning them to actually join into the ASI network and get paid for the resources that would otherwise go to waste. So this approach empowers smaller contributors, democratizes access to the network so that anyone can play a part in supporting ASI or AI projects in general. And Nunet's peer-to-peer technology enables secure and efficient compute deployment across the network. And like I said, making it easier for smaller fishes to integrate seamlessly with larger and high capacity computing like those provided by Kudos. And one of the key benefits of Nunet's fully decentralized computing stack or model is our ability to optimize where and how computing happens. So by dynamically using devices maybe closer to where the data is or the task is located, Nunet can reduce delays, improve reliability, which is ideal, and adapt actually to the adaptations of AI and everything, which makes it ideal for real time applications like AI interfaces, decentralized AI tasks, and everything like this. So, which hopefully will make our progression towards AGI, ASI faster and more efficient, and ensuring that the ASI Alliance can deliver responsive and powerful AI capabilities worldwide. So that's kind of where we fit in, but obviously more will kind of, as we look at the tech integrations between everything and we have our platform stable, we'll release more on that kind of integration with ASI as time goes on.
Fantastic. It's interesting that it's amazing how actually AI and blockchain very much go hand in hand, not just from a sort of compute resource point of view, but also from a sort of provenance point of view, from a traceability point of view, from a constraint point of
Yes.
view. It's really amazing how these two industries literally go hand in hand. I mean, blockchain kind of solves many problems. The one that we're discussing today, of course, is decentralized computing, but there's broader ramifications for that, which is nothing short of exciting. And as we move towards, I've listened to Ben Goertzel talk about the singularity. I think there's going to be a real distributed ledger sort of component to all that. Hence, I guess Nunet's sort of inception, rather interestingly. And you touched there on sort of where Nunet's at and what's to come in regards to staying up to date. As the platform sort of progresses, there'll be more and more news on the integration of it. Let's maybe touch for some of the listeners on where Nunet currently is today. What's the sort of state of the network today? How operational is it? How sort of in use is it? Where's Nunet kind of at as a project today?
Sure. So at the start of the year, Nunet, we have the we call it DMS, which is our device management service. And how I explain DMS is anyone that's familiar with like Linux, they have a kernel, and Linux kernel basically orchestrates everything. The DMS for us is like the kernel for Linux. Okay, so at the start of the year, we set out to refactor, which is basically reorganizing, restructuring, re-architecturing the DMS to bring it to a point where it's more scalable, flexible, and that it reduces the need for it to be refactored more and more in the future. So we've been working on this for basically the whole year, and now we are actually in kind of the we call release candidate phase with with hopeful launch of the DMS version 0.5 release in December, the end of the plan for December, probably coming into January. So this marks a huge step towards decentralized computing infrastructure, decentralized, like fully orchestration layer. And it's packed with features that will bring Nunet closer to delivering this efficient global orchestration of computing resources. So as I mentioned, we have release candidates. Okay, so basically we'll have 4 release candidates, with the 5th being the final. So we'll have 4 release candidates coming up between now and December. And basically each release candidate is a feature or function. It adds feature or functionalities onto the platform. So right now we're on DMS boot release. So that means you can connect your devices into the platform. The next RC1 will look at running jobs on like multiple devices. And basically with the final version looking at, first of all, improved job orchestration and matching. So introducing enhanced job orchestration capabilities with decentralized search and matching, which means that tasks can be dynamically assigned depending on the best available device, optimizing performance and reliability across the network. The next is the new actor system. So this is, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this new actor framework, but it's some really, really cool tech that we're building. And this is kind of the core, one of the core parts of the Nunet platform, and it integrates security, identity management, and private networking, which allows for smooth and secure job deployment, scheduling, and execution across a decentralized network. So the way I kind of look at it is like this new actor model is essentially like our version of Kubernetes. If anyone's familiar with that, it's a centralized orchestration layer. That's what our version is. Other features will be new observability tools, so rolling out telemetry and observability interfaces, which lets developers and operators monitor system health performance in real time. And this transparency also ensures that the network remains robust and reliable as it scales. And it's some of this telemetry data stuff is, I actually quite, it's quite interesting. You come on a new day and you have X amount of CPU, GPU, and you watch it grow and watch it build. It's quite a nice thing. Then the other thing that we're working on is building the grounds for our tokenomics layer. So over the next year, we'll be integrating our tokenomics layer, our network tokenomics. So what we mean by that is, how do you price computing fairly? Electricity in different countries costs different things, depending on what device you have, your uptime, everything like that. So we're looking at algorithms and mechanisms to fairly compensate people on their computing resources within the network. So that's going to be the work we'll have next year. And basically we are laying the groundwork now for it, and this will eventually allow users to exchange value within the network seamlessly, and making the compute economy even more dynamic. And then the kind of last-ish thing that we're working on is developer tools and testing. So we've recently launched our developer documentation portal. And basically, as we are an open source project, this has everything you need to know about Nunet, how to deploy Nunet, how to connect your device up to Nunet. And basically what we want to do is support the growth and development of our community, and the growth and development of our developer tools, comprehensive testing framework, covering everything and anything from like unit tests to end-to-end security tests. So as we gear up for the final release, we'll have the release candidates, which are used to refine these features that I mentioned above. And the community is playing a vital role in this. So we do encourage people to come in, get involved, help us develop. We're hopefully going to have RC1, the first release candidate, out in the coming week or so. And perhaps when this video is out, it will be out. But the DMS release is all about enabling decentralized job management at scale, setting a solid foundation for future growth and scalability and innovation within Nunet's ecosystem. And then once all that's done, we'll actually look at coming into January. We're in talks with some partners, running pilots on the platform so people can actually see how it works, and then building more use cases, functionalities as time goes on.
Wow, sounds like you've got your work cut out for you by the sounds of all of that. So, very excited to see how that all sort of comes to fruition. When do you, and I always feel like giving sort of timelines in crypto is it's very rare that they get
Danger.
yeah, it's very rare they get stuck to in my experience, whether that be for whatever it may be. When do you envision people actually be able to start to use Nunet on a mainnet kind of fashion? Is there any kind of a broad timeline for that I can push you on, or am I maybe reaching too far?
I'm going to be hopeful and say, end of 2025. What we're working on now is the core platform, is the core, and we'll kind of be working on that simultaneously because our tokenomics layer essentially is built on top of the platform.
Yep.
So it can be kind of, it's not on the blockchain, we're chain agnostic. So we don't rely on that. It's just a plugin. I'm going to be hopeful and say the end of next year. But it's quite hard to fairly price and have all these algorithms, and our tokenomics guys shares like research things all the time, and I'm just looking at them and I'm like, oh, I would I don't know how he's going to do it. But there's some really interesting methods and science and research that's gone into it. Going to be hopeful and say next year, but in terms of the platform actually being usable, that will be in January. We'll be running pilots and stuff like that. And then in terms of being more easier to access, easier to interact with, that will kind of come over time. My outlook is that, in 2-3 years, like maybe even having like phones that you can download the Nunet app and you can say, okay, yes, I want to upload X amount of CPU or GPU from my mobile phone, and have a nice interface for that. So that's something I would like, but it's going to take a few years for that, like, nicety of having it done.
Yeah, I just had to ask you. I didn't want to push you because I know that in the crypto space, I don't know how long it was. It was years we were waiting for Ethereum to essentially move on to proof of stake, like literally years, and it was getting pushed back by years. So
Yes,
that's just an example of how I feel like dates go in the cryptocurrency space and how hard it can be to. It can often kind of be like trying to change a car
exactly.
engine whilst driving it. So it's we're not wanting it rushed. I just sort of thought that might be just to find your thoughts on when it sort of
Yes,
might be looking to come out. And you mentioned mobile devices and then being able to actually compute to the Nunet network. I think I looked at a study and it was something like 10 million mobile phones could basically run one of the most powerful AI models if they all compute. And this is the power of decentralized pooling of resources. You know, it's pretty phenomenal, and you can legitimately compete with the largest companies in the world that, of course, offer um, computing. The last thing, really, Jennifer, for me to do is to ask you where people can find out more about Nunet. Where can people get on board? Of course, we're going to leave links to all your socials, the website, and anything else in the description. But where would you direct people? People want to learn more. They've watched this interview. Where would you send them?
yes. So the best place you can learn about things is on our Medium account, and you can access that through our website. So Nunet, NUNET.io/links, and that will bring you to all of our social media links. I think Medium for us is a really good place to start. I've written the blogs and articles, so hopefully they're not too tech heavy for everyone, but on open-ended computing, our fully decentralized computing stack, what's to look forward to in Q4, and basically anything that we're working on. I tried to make it as easy digestible as possible. On our YouTube, we do like a technical discussion for those that are more technically maybe inclined or just interested in learning more. We do technical discussions where we discuss basically everything about the project, from the new actor model to job orchestration. Some of the conversations go over my head, but they are really interesting. So that's another place you can find information. And if you are looking to get involved or to get like, be a provider or to build on Nunet, I mentioned our documentation portal, and you can find that at docs.nunet.io, and that will have everything you need to get started, everything you need to know about the project as well.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll leave a link to all of that, guys, in the description. Get on board. This is a project that I'm personally following and wishing all the success in the world for, because it really is, bringing sort of revolutionary properties to what is, again, going to be like the fuel of tomorrow, computing. So, Jennifer, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to having you on again someday soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And hopefully next time we talk, the DMS will be out and we'll have some pilots running for you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jennifer. See you later, guys. That's it from me.